Oh, as I said here, we're doing a new tier list this time, um, because honestly, it just feels disingenuous to uh, rate the Overseer as a suit overall because its biolinks are all over the shop when it comes to how powerful I think they are. So, and biolinks probably should have been split up on their own anyway. So, yeah, we're going to do each biolink. As for the tiers, as always, these are opinions or tier lists. Opinions, you can't really sort things into categories cleanly in basically any situation. But anyway, as for the tiers here, S 100% needs a nerf. That is, in my opinion, 100% needs a nerf. A is over the curve, but not necessarily so bad as S. Like you can, if something was in A, if it was left there, it's not going to be super degenerate and complained about that much. Honestly, it's probably just a little bit too powerful. B is like the top of. This is where things I feel should be. Like this is roughly where most things are, and that like this is the balance point where I think would it feels good, but it's probably balanced. C is like the flip side of that. Like it's probably still balanced, but it doesn't quite feel quite right. It doesn't feel good enough. Like maybe there's not quite enough payoff for how high skill it is, or something along those lines. Or maybe it just feels clunky. And like a quality of life pass might be enough to pick it up. D is under the curve. This things here are weaker. They probably still have a use in some situation, but um, they're not super great most of the time. And F is a like complete failure, almost always outclassed. Um, these things don't really have any meaningful impact at all, or if they have a meaningful impact, it's negative, which is not what you're looking for when you're choosing your biolinks. Anyway, let's get right into it. So we're going to start with the Ironside, mostly because the suits are sorted alphabetically, which happens to be release order. Um, Magnetic Link. Magnetic Link lets you pick up things through walls. Uh, it boosts your ammo pickup range from 4 to 6 meters, which is why they start working through one thick walls. But also, it's just lets you get things through out of corrosion cubes, out of like without getting quite as close. It gives you a 6 meter range where you effectively have infinite ammo, which is longer than the lunge range um, of the Fury's Edge without enhancements, because you can only get to 5.85 or something like that with Gap Closer. It's real silly. Um, it's really powerful. It was the reason that the Ironside suit was in A last time. It's still very good. It will remain. Uh, it yeah, it will be an A this time round. Um, as for Shot Tracker just lets you see your ammo through walls. It's very useful with two of the three ranged weapons. I don't think it's particularly useful with the Vault Lancer because Vault Lancer shots normally embed themselves in the wall, and you can track them a lot easier. But the other two, uh, with the bounce on the plasma bow and just never sticking into anything on the um, demo cannon, I think that's pretty good. I do think it's a little bit clunky. It's kind of hard to see through walls sometimes. Like I think it's valuable for the non-Bolt Lancer weapons, but I just don't think I think it's a little clunky. Which is why I think I'll put it in C. It could be D. We'll stick with C for now. Rapid fire is real good. Rapid fire just increases the attack rate. It's a little bit dicey with the Falconic Plasma Bow because it already fires so fast and requires delicate aiming, but the there is a theoretical situation where you're being like charged at by a ton of unarmored warmongers. It'd be a weird build, but in that situation, the being zero point 0.4 instead of zero point 0.5 seconds is valuable, but it's really impactful on both the Vault Lancer and the Demo Cannon, though mostly on the Vault Lancer. Taking it from 1 to zero point 0.8 seconds is a huge boost. And if you haven't leveled it up to level 3 yet, taking it from 2 to 1.6 is uh, that's a really huge boost. Um, yeah, anyway, so I think like Ironside has a fairly like I think none of Ironside's Biolinks are particularly bad. Shot Track is like the most suspect, but both of these feel really good. This one probably feels a little bit too good, but not super out of the not super out there, just like a little bit overtuned, honestly. Like if your base pickup range was like 3 meters instead of 4, I think it would feel fine, and it would still be able to do most of the things it can do currently, including pick up through walls. Okay, so we're on to the Kamaitachi suit. Let's start with Frenzy. Frenzy I'll put in B. It gives a movement speed boost, and I'm not a particularly big fan of movement speed boosts, especially ones that are kind of low, like this is only 25%, because generally speaking, you would still get to your destination faster, or you'd still get moving faster, by just setting up a grapple, but but Frenzy specifically is on a melee kill, which means that anytime you've just done a melee kill, you definitely don't have a grapple set up, so you are using your movement speed for a little bit, and it gives you that little bit of time to get your movement speed until you can set up your next grapple. 4 seconds is more than long enough for that, and that just works really well. Like it just happens to be in it happens to always be activated in the time frame when you cannot possibly have a grapple. So I think that it's actually better for that. Because like it is technically conditional, but that you its condition is that it will activate when you need it, pretty much, which is great. I don't think it's like super overpowered or anything, so we're just that's why I think it's in B. Gap closer, I think, is kind of suspect because lunges by default don't actually have a lot of use cases because they're all 15 meters per second speed, and that's the same speed that the grapple wheel's in, meaning that typically speaking, setting up a grapple and using an unlocked attack could functionally be the same, although quality of life, it is easier to lunge, um, just less hassle to lunge. But under the base stats, there's not really a lot of reason to lunge. So increasing your lunge, increasing how long you get stuck in that lunge animation is not actually very impactful on its own. It is, however, fairly impactful if you can make the lunge mean something, which is when Quick Strike comes in, but we'll get to that in a moment. So I don't actually think, and because Gap Closer, previously I would have put this in D or F, but because of the stealth buffs to the Fury's Edge, where you can deflect during a lunge, I think that nowadays it's kind of clunky because it requires another Biolink to really be impactful, but I think it's okay enough, so I'll put that in C. Quick Strikes is I'm going to put in B. I don't actually think it's overpowered, but it does give the lunge a value because it means that lunge is now the fastest way to move, and Quick Strikes even got buffed. An extra 10% speed cuts off like a couple extra frames. It's good. It's yeah, cuts off a couple extra frames on max lunge range. That's fine. It's not enough to push it over the edge, I don't think. It's still just like pretty good, and I think it's the Quick Strike is the only thing that keeps melee play in the game. Like without Quick Strike, I think that melee would be like a waste of a playstyle. You would always want a ranged weapon. And that's unfortunate, but it's a good perk. Um, Good Biolink. It just not like super over the top, which is probably what Melee actually needs. Needs something that enables it that is over the top to really be powerful, but we don't have that. We have Quick Strike, which is more like significantly more balanced. It's just that that kind of lets Melee down a little bit because it is generally speaking inferior to just playing ranged in all games. Really, you have to give an incentive to play Melee, and the speed incentive is what they try here, but it doesn't quite work as well as it would as it should. Okay, so now we're doing the Nautilus suit. I'm not particularly good with these icons, which is why the had this had to be re-recorded. But we've got here the one that increases perfect block, and it's going straight up into S. It has a very large increase on. It is a very large increase on perfect block effect. It does a plus 300% of the effects as listed. That's a crazy high number. Biolinks don't normally get over 100% in general, um, and that number is so high that it actually provides more percentage uptime on the arc barrier than Surge Override, which is the next one, which will go in A, which only affects percentage uptime effectively because it reduces the cooldown by 40%. Like, this is a strict upgrade in power of the weapon. This is just a like percentage uptime shenanigan, and this is still better at doing this thing's job. Um, though it is the combination of the two is incredibly degenerate, and is the reason why I'm keeping them in S and A. Whereas I think this is probably fine if this was the cooldown is probably fine if the perfect block effect one wasn't so ridiculous as it is. At the moment, it actually a perfect block with this Biolink doubles the amount of time. Like it, yeah, doubles the amount of time versus not having the Biolink. It's crazy. And block, which is the one that increases the perfect block timing. So you get a full 1 second instead of half, which is crazy when you have an active time of 1 second. But regardless, it's I think a pretty balanced perk. I think a balanced Biolink. I think it's actually pretty good. Um, you don't normally see it because there's normally something you want to grab off something else, and the other two are just more powerful, more degenerate. But if not, the Nautilus suit just works really well on its own because all three of its biolinks are pretty good. Okay, we're just going to finish up with the Overseer, the newest suit. Um, so this one didn't have a this suit didn't have a rating previously because it didn't exist. So let's just quickly go over it. Slipstream I think is a B tier perk. It has some really important values in that it allows you to grapple jump to do your grapple jumps and maintain your momentum over a longer period of time, meaning that you actually get uh, a faster effective speed by grapple jumping. It's at max level, it moves as fast as walking, so there's no downside to using it, um, and it basically lets you use the air as ground, which there's a lot of times in more open outposts where the air or anywhere but the path that they want you to take is a better place to be, and this just lets you stay there consistently, and it's pretty good at that. This is Scavenger. Scavenger is going in the F tier, which suddenly disappeared. Oops. This is D. This is F. Um, Scavenger saves you seconds, potentially, maybe. Um, Out of a whole outpost run, it is not doing a lot for the Biolink slots. Um, it's a little bit better now that you can pull vacuum up loot, but so you can actually get the loot out of your corrosion cubes a bit easier, but it just does so little in general. And the fact that it's limited in range when and the limit is like kind of around when you can hear the tombs. And like tombs aren't directional, the sound isn't directional, so you have to like work out by it getting louder and quieter, which can take a little bit, but it's not more than a couple seconds, and that's all this saves you. And you still have to like do the full spin around to try and find it when you do start hearing it. This is not a good biolink. It needs some help. And Pathfinder's really good. It's I don't think it's so overpowered that it like 100% needs a nerf. Like it could exist in its current form, and that would probably be fine. But it is pretty powerful. Um, it is a pretty powerful biolink, and because of that, I think it's a little bit over the curve. Like I like any of these ones here in B, I think are strictly weaker than it. Whereas I probably wouldn't say the same about Magnetic Link and Surge Override, and definitely wouldn't say the same about Countercharge. So that's where I'm at on that one. I think like it's strong enough to have to justify a nerf, but it's also not so strong that I think that that nerf needs to be like sooner rather than later. Could it could exist in this form for as long for a while. It is interestingly one of the best like utility perk biolinks. Like when you look at things that the Overseer was entirely utility stuff, like where it's more about quality of life or um, not like directly boosting the numbers of your weapons. Um, this is the one that is probably the strongest out of them, unless you count Magnetic Link as one, but I really don't. I think that that is more of a, it's more like an increase in ammo than it is quality of life stuff. But anyway, that's it for me for today. I will have all three of these up at the same time, and all three of the tier lists up at the same time, and we do this at the end of the next sector, hopefully. But for now, this is where I'm leaving the Biolink um, tier list for the Shattered Peak sector. And I shall see you next time.